Cord. All right, you guys. I just want to say, wow, wow, wow. God has showed up this week, and you have showed up this week, and we are here on day 4. And I just want to say, whether this is your 4th day in a row of being here, or your 3rd, or your 2nd, or it's your 1st, or you've been just listening to the replays because it didn't work for you to be on live, like I want to start off with a huge congratulations. And I want you to give yourself a round of applause or a clap on the back because you are the type of CEO who shows up, right? Like I said yesterday, there were over 100 women that have participated in this challenge. And a lot of people say they're going to do stuff. We've probably all been there, right? But not everyone always follows through on those things, right? But this is the first step, committing to something and following through, even if it's not about perfection, right? It's about progression. And it's about now not just showing up, but now continuing to show up, continuing to do the things that you've learned this week, right? Like, again, we talked about yesterday. I don't want you walking away going, great, Lisa just added more to my to-do list. That is not my goal, right? I want you walking away going, I've experienced transformation, and that transformation is going to affect what I do, right? It's going to help me to drive it in the right direction. And, like, I love the fact, as I've been looking over the homework, especially the homework from yesterday, it's been really fun to respond each day. But you know what I noticed yesterday? The homework from day 3, just in case you didn't know what it was or just joining us, was to identify which of those 5 blocks in your day that you are going to start committing to asking the question, what is it time for? And hands down, do you know which block it was that I think as of coming on live right now, I think 100% of you who did your homework, kudos to you who did your homework, have said, it's that evening refill. Why is it that so many of us start off with this intention around our time at the beginning of the day, and by the end, woo, right? And then we think that scrolling or binging or, falling asleep on the couch is really going to be refreshing and refilling and help us sleep for the night and then be ready for the next day to go and pour out in the ways that God has called us to, right? And so even that time, right? Like, my goal is to help you with all of your time. And we're going to get really specific today on some of that in the middle time, right? That day pour out where you're really focusing on growing your business. You're growing the income and the impact by the types of specific things that you're doing. But here's the thing. What you do in that evening time, that matters too, right? What you do in the morning time, that matters too. So I want you to just start with one block, right? So if for you, it's that evening refill. I love that Nikki said that she went and deleted some apps and games and things like that off of her phone. Guess what? Then it's not an option, or at least that's what I call a speed bump, right? Because she probably could go reload it if she really wanted to, or she could go on her computer and access, certain things, but it's not as easy when it's not right in our hands. It's like, I was just having this conversation with someone yesterday. It's like not buying ice cream so that you have to go to the store down the street if you really want it, right? Because like we all have that urge of like, I want ice cream, right? But am I really willing to drive down the street or not, right? So that's kind of like my speed bump when it comes to stuff like that. Although I am just right now going to be completely honest. When we're done with this tonight, my husband has to work tonight. He's working the fair and he works till like midnight or 1 or something. So it's going to be me. And that's fine because my feet are going to be up on the couch and I'm going to have ice cream in my hand that is made by my friend Penny. And my daughter, I quote, said, "This is the most amazing thing I've ever put in my mouth." And it is hidden in the outside freezer. So my husband can't find it. And that is what I'm going to be doing tonight. I won't eat the whole thing, but anyway, right. But I've been keeping that away for a good time. So anyway, okay. So we're not here to talk about ice cream. We're here to talk about our time. Right. So I love that you're here. And I love that we're talking about this idea of stewarding versus managing. And it was so interesting. You know how God works when you're paying attention. I'm listening to one of my favorite pastors on his podcast this morning, and he was talking about stewarding. You guys, he was talking about 2 Corinthians 9:8-11 that we talked about way back on day 1, right? And he was talking about the difference between ownership of something and stewardship of it. And one of the things that he brought out was that stewardship involves privilege, right? It is a privilege that I've received this gift, right? And that's amazing. But it doesn't stop there. There is a responsibility that goes along with it, right? He's not just giving us our time. or giving us this business or this ministry or this calling or this relationship or this body or this fill in the blank just for kicks and giggles, just to take up space, just to make us look good or feel good or whatever. The whole point of it, if you look at 2 Corinthians 9, 8 through 11, I encourage you, spend some time there. Because what he says is the way that these people were investing, and the specific case he was talking about was their money, but this also relates to our time, was that it would overflow. Well, let me go back, that they would be generous in every way, which would overflow with thanksgiving to God, right? That what they had been given by God would be invested and would increase the impact of what was going on, right, in what God was building. And I love that. And one of the things he mentioned in there, because he was talking about money specifically, when he was talking about generosity, and he was talking about how, we have different relationships with money, but the same thing relates to our time, right? When our time feels out of control and we're chasing after it, guess what? We're making time our God. Because we're essentially saying, when I can get this back under control, or when I can get this under control finally for the first time, then it's going to feel better. And then even for those of us who we're doing a really good job at keeping it all under control, we're managing it, right? We have to stop and ask the question, is time my God? Am I working all day to keep things under control, right? So that, because it's uncomfortable, I don't like it. Here's a great way to test. You guys ready for this? How do you react when you get interrupted? How do you react? If you have a plan for your day, right? How do you react when the doorbell rings, when the phone rings, when your hubby comes home early from work and suddenly needs something, when something breaks, when, fill in the blank with whatever it is, right? So often the way we respond to interruptions shows that we've been putting time, probably in a place that it shouldn't be. But when we are letting go of control, we're stewarding our time, then we're like, God, you're our God. You're the one who gave this to me, and I'm not going to hold on to it like clenched fists, right? I'm open hand, and I'm planting, and I'm planting, and I'm planting. And today we're going to be talking about planting those seeds of faith. And so I'm really excited to dive in today. And here, first, let's start off with an aha or a win that you want to share from this week. Okay, it could be anything from days 1 through 3, anything that we've done so far, anything that happened because of you doing the homework, anything that you just anyone have something on your heart that you're like, you know what, this has made a difference. Or, wow, I've been thinking about this. Or, hey, Lissa, I know sometimes I have people tell me that I'm in their head, hopefully in a good way, but they're like, I keep hearing this on repeat. You have time, you have time, you have time. Or what time is it? What time is it? Lissa, I want to curse your name every time I pick up my phone because I see that question and then it makes me put it down. That's okay. Be honest with me, right? So does anybody have something that you want to share before we dive into day 3 or 4? We're on day 4. Bonnie Jean. Sorry, I'm going to keep saying Bonnie Jean because I see it. So
answer that. I like it. I like hearing it both. But just the what is it time for question instead of what time is it? And so it's like, oh yeah, I'm living on purpose. And what can I accomplish in this time? Because what's it time for? So
yeah, right. It's powerful. That right there can shift everything. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else have something you want to share? A lot of you have already, and I really appreciate that. You know what I want to do before we go any farther? Let's stop. It is time to pray, right? God's been showing up this week, and I know he's going to show up today, and I just want to dedicate this time to him. So Lord, thank you for being God. Thank you for inviting us into partnership with you. Thank you for entrusting time to us. And sometimes I wonder why, because you know that we're going to waste it and be just unintentional with it and put it into things that don't matter or that are actually taking us in the wrong direction. And yet you still faithfully lay 24 hours in front of us every single day. And you've also put this calling on each one of our lives for the ministry or the business or the relationship or the fill in the blank things that you want us to focus on in this season. And so God, today, as we finish up this challenge, I pray that, well, number one, I know you started this work in us by drawing us to yourself. And I know that you are continuing this work. And I can't wait to see what the fruit of that is going to be, not only today and in the next couple of days, but over the next weeks and months and years and decades, as we just continue to partner with you and look at our time from a different way. So God, I pray your blessing over today. Pray that we would hear what you want us to hear. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right. Well, I'm excited. You guys, I woke up to this text today. Where's my phone? It's over here. Okay. So let me read you this text I got from one of my CEOs. Her name is Danielle. Her story actually is on the dashboard. So if you haven't checked it out yet, I just dropped the link to the dashboard in there. Um, let that person in and go back and find. I was following up with a whole bunch of people this morning, so I'm gonna have to scroll back a little bit. Yesterday. Okay, here it is. Okay, so she sent me this message this morning, totally unscripted, right? Didn't ask for it. She goes, I got up this morning to, another work day. Okay, so I just need to know she works full time and she has a business, but she wants her business to be full time. And she says, and now I'm doing a steer belief map. These are such an amazing tool. Worth every penny of the program just to have this, LOL. And then she goes, not really. It's worth every penny to have you as a mentor. And I was like, ugh. Right. And then like right after that, she goes, you are a CEO's best friend. And I was like, oh my gosh. Right. But I want to tell you about Danielle. Okay. And again, I encourage you, I think I put like a 2-3 minute clip on the dashboard so you can go and listen to that. Her full story is linked to that as well. But she was part of a challenge that I did not too long ago. And she was super engaged, really excited, resonating. Everything was like, oh, yes, yes, yes. You know, like I want to say yes, but she didn't think she had the money to invest in the program. And to be honest, she's really busy. Like I told you, she's got, and I love how she calls it her employment, her entrepreneurship, and her everything else, the 3 E's, right? And so she had a lot going on and she just didn't feel like she had the money. But I challenged her to plant seeds of faith and trust God to provide. And you know what? She did plant seeds of faith. She did trust him to provide. She did come into the program and she is showing up as a CEO. She's engaging on coaching calls. She's asking for help. In fact, yes, it is a group coaching program, but she and I have a one-on-one call set up this afternoon because we are breaking down her big goal of stepping away from that full-time job so she can finally go into just her business. Like that's the level of support that I get. And I found this out today. I didn't know this. She's even meeting for accountability with another CEO that she connected with inside of our inner circle on their own to like hold each other accountable. And like that just really warmed my heart because like that is what we're doing, right? And she is inspired and encouraged, and it's literally affecting every area of her life. Her mom asked her what she was doing different. So when other people start asking, you know that like something's working, right? And so I encourage you, listen to her story on the challenge dashboard, right? And plant seeds of faith. You know, plant seeds of faith. Hopefully a lot of things have been planted in your heart and your mind this week, right? And then God is going to continue to water that, right? And bring the growth. Right. And so she trusted God. She invested in herself. She planted herself in the right environment and she's growing. And here's what I want to tell you, you're growing. You planted yourself here this week, right? Like I hope you're coming away feeling more like a CEO, a Christ empowered operator, right? And so inside the community, there is a post today that I am asking you to share a CEO praise report. In fact, we do this every Friday, right? Because really it's not putting ourselves in the spotlight, right? We're putting God in the spotlight, right? And this is the work that we need to keep doing and doing it in community, right? Believing we have more than enough time, believing it's not selfish to set boundaries around what matters, believing you're called not just to productivity right, at all costs, especially, right? But purposivity, right? Believing that you can and will grow your impact and your income because you're doing it with God, right? And I just want to say, like, by the end of the year, like we are about to hit September 1st, you guys, 2 more days, right? You and your business and your calendar and your time could look completely different, right? Who wants things to be different than when you came in this challenge? Drop me in the chat, okay? I would love to see who's like, yeah, I don't want to leave the same person. I don't want to be like, okay, that was great, and then walk off, right? So while this whole challenge thing is fresh, if you've been served this week, and we're not even done yet, after today's session, I am asking you to do me a huge favor, okay? Would you either type or record a short video, like less than a minute, sharing what you got out of this challenge? Pretend like you're talking to your business bestie who wasn't here because she didn't make the time to be here, right? Like, what would you say to her? What was the payoff of being part of this challenge for you as a CEO? Because I would love to put videos and even typed out things if you really want to do it that way, like on the next dashboard for the next time that we do something like this, right? And I want to hear, what is it that's impacted you? And I would love to hear it in your voice because that says so much. So make sure that you head over to the dashboard and you can see some ones that are up there already. I'll put that link again in the chat here. And then when we're done, while it's fresh, I would love to hear like what really came for you, right? Because maybe you thought you're coming in here going to get some of those tips, right? Remember that first level of learning? Like, I just want the tips. Or maybe you wanted the strategy or the principles, but we really worked on the identity, right? Who here is leaving a CEO? I want you to drop CEO, and we all know what that means. Christ empowered operator, right? And this is different, right? Then I hope you found it's been different this week than all the other programs and the planners and even the business growth stuff out there that's just teaching the tactics and the strategy and the principles, right? Because ultimately it's about our identity. First, it's about our identity in Christ, right? It's where it always starts. We're always called to someone, right? Not something or somewhere, because these things are going to change out here, but this doesn't change. And then we identify the specific places that he's called us to in our life and business in the here and now, right? Because that's ultimately what's going to guide where we invest our time. Because when we find time for what matters and the things that we're called to. And so I hope that like, if you came in here going, this is going to help me find the time, that now you're realizing it's been right in front of you all along, right? We've just been burying it under what? A lot of untrue beliefs, distractions, shiny objects, even misdirected thinking, lies from the enemy, right? And that's why we keep coming back to, where is the answer to all of this stuff? Is it found in our calendars? No, it's found in our hearts, right? And this is the work that we have to keep doing. And as we do this, we are going to see an increase in the ROI in your time. So I'm curious, have you even seen a glimmer of a change in the ROI in your time this week? Maybe not in a tangible way that you can measure. Maybe you did, and I'd love to hear that, right? But maybe you've seen like, wow, I got more done in less time. Or wow, I didn't waste time on that, and then I had time for this. Or wow, I wasn't like spending all this time ruminating and guilt and stress and overwhelm and all that stuff, swimming around never enough island or treading water in barely enough island, right? I'm starting to believe that with God, I've got more than enough, right? Like that is where we want to stay. So, all right, today I want to talk about becoming an impactor, okay? But I want to do it from like talking about what is it that the world is putting out there that we should become an influencer, right? You know what an influencer is? It's someone who has the power to affect the purchasing decisions of someone else, right? Just because of who they are, right? Or some authority they have, or some knowledge or position or relationships with their audience, right? How many of us have bought things because we've seen some influencer and we watched them and they said it was the best thing since sliced bread and we purchased it, right? Great. Let me ask you a question. Did it really change your life? Probably not. I mean, maybe there are some things that like, yeah, that was amazing. And oh my goodness, whatever. But yesterday, I mentioned becoming an impactor. So IMPACT-ER. And it's really funny because I wrote that phrase. I showed you my Post-it note yesterday, my Post-it note things over there. I was sitting in a coaching call with my coach, and something she's talking about impact. And I wrote down, become an impactor. Okay. And I wrote that on my Post-it note. I even have a picture of it, and I'll tell you why in just a second, because just after that, I was listening to one of my business besties podcast, and she was talking about becoming an impactor. And I was like, okay, God, maybe we need to talk about this, right? So I went in, to my dictionary on my phone, and I was like, what is an impactor? At first, you know what I found? It was a machine that strikes hard blows. Okay, that's not what we're talking about, right? Like an impact wrench or whatever. I don't know, I'm not a tool person, but then I found a slightly more helpful definition. An impactor is a person or thing that impacts. Okay, so what is impact, right? And then when I dug through, scrolled past all the striking definitions under impact, I found that it can mean to exert a force by a new idea, concept, or ideology. That's exactly what you are doing in your business, right? That's exactly what I am doing, right? We are impacting people by helping them to think differently, right? By saying, you don't have to stay on Never Enough Island, whatever that is in your business. And we can move over here, right? And here's the thing, and I love this because my coach talks about this. I'm going to give her credit for this. When we impact people, we aren't just trying to get them to buy something, no matter how life-changing it is, okay? The definition of impactor, yes. It means a force that is exerted by a new idea, concept, or ideology. A new idea, concept, or ideology, right? It's going to get in here, right? This is going to get to the identity stuff, right? Because when we're just doing things out here, right? All the influencers, right? They got us in the moment to give in and purchase. I almost bought something the other day, and thankfully I stopped and went and looked at some reviews, and I was like, oh, really glad I didn't do that, because they made it sound really amazing on the video, but yeah, that's not what everybody else had to say, right? But when we're just looking to influence people, we're creating what she calls buyers, right? They're buyers of information, or they're buyers of products. But when we are really going to the identity piece and really going to what someone's thinking, and we're helping to lead this movement from this is where I am to where I want to be, we're creating believers, right? We're creating believers in that transformation. At the end of the day, which one is going to stick around longer in your business? If you have a bunch of buyers or a bunch of believers? A bunch of believers. Somebody dropped that in the chat, right? Influencers come and go, but impactors, guess what? That impact lasts beyond them. Like, as a mom, you are not only impacting your kids, you're impacting your kids' kids, which are your grandkids, and their kids, your great grandkids. And someday they may not know your name. Like, years from now, like, nobody may know who Lissa Figgins is, even if they have the last name of Figgins, but they are still going to be experiencing my impact, right? And the same thing happens when we are growing this business as a mission that God has given us, and when we are investing time to help others. That has this ripple effect, right? And that's what we're going for, right? Well, I don't know about you guys. I have no judgment if you have, but I decided as soon as it started coming out, I was not doing the dancing, pointing videos, right? And holding up, the products and things like that, because, well, first of all, that wasn't me, but I really felt like that's not really going to serve people. That's not really going to help me, right? I have a bigger vision from God, which is to help women to see that they are a CEO and that they're called to be an impactor, and to let God, be the one that leads them in all of that. So let's talk about how today is talking about believe that you are a CEO. And hopefully I have built your belief in that this week. Okay. Hopefully you are going, yeah, I can say confidently, I am a CEO, right? Not I need to be a better CEO, but like, I am a CEO. Have I arrived? No, I'm still growing, right? I'm still moving. I'm still all of that. Okay. So how do we keep doing that? Okay. I want to show you how we do that, and how we then become the kind of CEO and continue becoming the kind of CEO who is always increasing her impact. And then in conjunction with that, her income. So would you like to know how to do that? Say, let's do that in the chat. And then I want you to get a piece of paper, because I'm going to give you some homework. Okay. So grab something to write with. And I want you to draw a tree on your paper. Doesn't have to be perfect. You guys have seen my drawing this week. It is not, I'm not an art teacher, an artist, or anything like that. Okay. I want you to draw a tree. Don't look at mine when you're drawing yours. Okay. You look down, you just draw. I told you draw a tree. You draw a tree the way that you're going to see it. Okay. When you've got it, I have to kind of like sit in my shadow here. Let me see if I can turn this just a little bit so the light doesn't glare off of it. Okay. There's my silly little tree. Okay. Just make sure it looks like a strong, healthy tree. We don't want any Charlie Brown Christmas trees, right? Has anybody ever seen like a huge tree? Like the biggest one I've ever seen was in this the rainforest in Washington State. And we visited our son out there. And he and his wife just recently went to the redwoods. And like, I hope to see that someday, right? But like, what is it about a huge tree that just makes you want to give it a big hug, right? Either you want to give that tree a big hug. My husband, we've been all over the world, and if he finds a really cool tree, he wants a picture with it, right? And half the time he's like hugging it because he's showing how big it is, right? Or the other thing a tree makes me do is look up, right? You're looking up, like at how tall it is, but guess what I think when I'm looking up? Like, wow, look at the creator up there who made this tree. Okay, so I want you to think about this tree being a successful woman in business. Okay, we'll say like this is an oak tree, right? Or maybe, well, in a minute it won't be able to be an oak tree because of what I'm going to put on there, but that's okay. Okay, she's inviting, right? People like to be around her. She's sheltering, right? She's got lots of branches and leaves and stuff like that. That's providing shelter and shade. Maybe even there's a tree swing that comes out of it. We have a tree swing in our tree out in the back, right? And how about this? Let's pretend that she's not an oak tree, and let's say that she's got lots of juicy fruit. All right. Remember the peach tree story I told you the other day? We don't have any peaches on our trees. Okay, so let's say she's got lots of juicy fruit that people like to eat, right? And everybody comments about this tree in every season. Like, wow, when the spring shoots come out, it's so beautiful. And when the summer branches are full, it's so beautiful, right? And when we start seeing the fruit, and how about in the fall? Who here loves fall? Who here is super excited that fall is coming and we're going to start seeing all the colors, right? Oh my gosh, I cannot wait for all of that. Okay, but here's the thing about trees and the thing about each of us is that the beauty we see is impossible if we're just looking at this. Does anyone know what is missing from my picture? And I wonder if it's missing from your picture too. Drop in the chat. What do you think is missing from my picture and or probably yours? Move this over so I can keep adding people in. Okay, well, yes, we're gonna assume the branches are underneath there, okay? Something really, really important that this tree must have, or this tree is not gonna grow and it's not gonna stay there. Yes, Bonnie, root. How many of you, be honest, raise your hand. Did you draw roots when you drew a tree, a strong, healthy tree? Most of the time we're looking at what's on the top, right? We're seeing someone's business on Instagram or wherever we are, LinkedIn or Alignable, and we're like, oh my gosh, she's amazing. We hear her podcast, we go to her training, we're like, oh, look at all this, right? Okay, here's the thing about this. Strong trees have really, these are not going to be pretty, so just bear with me, okay? Have really deep roots. Did you know, I looked it up, that trees often have roots that are twice as long as the tree is tall? Let me say that again. Healthy trees, the ones that you're enjoying all the fruit of and the branches of and the leaves of, everything on the top, often have roots that are twice the length that they are tall. Wow, that is huge, right? And as entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, even just women, right? We have to have roots. And our roots are the work that we do that nobody sees, right? It doesn't get celebrated because they just see what's up here, right? You just see when you just see me when we come on here. You have no idea, right? All the things that I was doing before this, right? Or after this, or all that. It's the work that we do in the dark, in the wet, in the mud, right? The roots have to grow down in order to support that beautiful great oak tree. Otherwise, what is going to happen when there's a storm? Yeah, Legacy Nikki, like, right? Flop. It's gonna be gone. Have you ever seen a huge tree that you're like, no way did that tree just get uprooted, right? And maybe it wasn't even that big of a storm, and there's some like little tree next to it that's like standing, tall still, and you're like, what in the world? Guaranteed the problem was in the roots, right? And once the roots aren't doing their job, then it starts hollowing out, right? So it still may look really big and strong on the outside, but and then eventually you start seeing this. So we have this one tree out there, and I could see it out the window the other day, and it had these orange leaves and like brown leaves. I was like, wow, is that tree already turning fall? My husband's like, no, it's dead. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I was so excited for fall, right? We have to be rooted. Okay. Now I want to, well, let's just talk about this. What are some of the storms in business? What are some of the things that happen or don't happen that can kind of, sway us? And if we're not careful, if we don't have deep roots, we're going to be falling over. Drop something in the chat. What's a possible storm that could blow? They say most businesses don't make it past the first couple of years, right? So if you've been in business for more than a couple of years, you are like in the top echelon of business owners. Okay, revenue. Yeah, I've not seen the revenue, right, Lori? Okay, low revenue. So, okay, yeah. Makes you go, why am I even doing this? Right? Inflation. Okay, so what's going on around here? Yeah. Could be some kind of a health crisis or issue that comes up. It could be that our spouse says something, or our mom or our sister, like, go get a real job. Or you plan an event and nobody shows up. Who's been there, done that, total, right? Or you show up on your podcast or your blog or your social media over and over again, and it feels like nobody's listening. And, this is why we have to have our root be rooted. Okay. So where you are rooted is what's going to make all the difference. Can I show you that in scripture? Okay. I want to show you this because I love this passage. In fact, this is one that I listen to every single day, along with my With God vision. Okay. So if you have a Bible, you can look it up with me. If not, you can look up afterwards. Psalm 92, verses 12 through 15. I could probably say it by memory just because I listen to it every day, but I'm going to go ahead and read it just in case. Okay. And I think this is perfect because it talks about women in midlife. So listen for this. Okay. Does the righteous flourish like a palm tree, and they grow like a cedar of Lebanon? They are planted in the house of the Lord. They flourish in the courts of God. They still bear fruit in old age. I love this. They stay fresh and green, proclaiming, the Lord is upright. He is my rock, and there is no unrighteousness in him. Can you picture those trees? There were two kind of trees in there. What kind of trees did you hear? Drop it in the chat. What kind of trees did that Psalm 19, 12 through 15? Sorry, Psalm 92, 12 through 15. Psalm 92, 12 to 15, for those of you who are asking. Yes, you're welcome. One of them was a palm tree. Who lives near palm trees? Like, I'm jealous. Nadine, you're in Florida, so I know you're near a palm tree, right? Like, that means you're in a cool part of the country. We don't have palm trees in the Midwest. Okay, so, but have you ever seen like the gale force winds that hurricanes bring to those palm trees? And yet they're still standing. How? Because they're rooted. Has anyone ever seen, well, I'm pretty sure no one has a cedar of Lebanon near them, right? Because they only grow in Lebanon, Syria, and parts of Turkey. But has anyone seen a picture of a cedar of Lebanon? The Bible actually refers to cedars of Lebanon quite a bit. And here's the thing about a cedar of Lebanon. They are the kind of trees that grow, get this, to be upwards of 120 feet tall and 20 to 30 feet wide. And here's the really interesting thing. Their growth is really slow, like painfully slow. They only grow, get this, ready? 20 feet in the first 20 years. That's it. Out of 120 feet, right? They only grow 20, a fraction of that in the first 20 years. But then over time, they continue growing and that other 100 plus feet goes up there. How is that possible? Especially in the type of land that they are in. Drop in the chat if you know how that's possible. It's their roots, right? They are planted, right? They are planted and they are planted in the right soil. And when those roots are planted in the right soil, then what do you see on top? You see a healthy tree. You see a tree that's producing fruit. Like you see all of these things, right? But here's the key, the whole thing. Where did that scripture say that those palm trees, the person who's like those palm trees or the person who's like the cedar trees is planted? Did you hear it? In God's presence, right? We talk about in like John 15, like being abiding, right? About the vine and the branches, right? Apart from me, you can do nothing. He who, abides in me, he it is who bears much fruit, right? That's essentially the same thing of being rooted, right? If you don't see branches running around my forest out here, if you do, they're gonna be dead laying on the ground, right? That is what comes even in old age. Did you hear that? Right? Midlife and beyond, right? It's not like, oh, my time's done, right? Or, oh, it's the holidays, or, oh, it's the economic crisis, or, oh, it's election, or, oh, it's whatever. In every season. Anyone thinking right now of another psalm this reminds you of? Psalm 1, about the tree firmly planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season. Its leaf does not wither, and in all that it does, it prospers. Again, I've said this many times this week to make sure you hear me correctly. We are not talking prosperity gospel. If I do this, then I will have health and wealth, right? No. But when we are rooted in him, our growth is inevitable, right? Our growth in our faith, our growth in our relationships, our growth in our business, our growth in all of these things. And is it so that people can be like, wow, look at that amazing Lissa, look at that amazing Bonnie, or Terry, or Nadine, or Carrie, or like, no. What did it say at the end of that scripture? What were they praising? Him. They're like, hey, he's upright. He's my rock. He's righteous, right? They are impactors for the kingdom, right? So anybody want to be a nice, healthy tree, right? Who wants to be a palm tree waving in the coastal breeze? Me, right? Who wants to go visit one? I'm going to Florida actually in 2 weeks. I can't wait. Okay. Who wants to be a cedar of Lebanon? Hey, if you come with me to Central Asia, I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. We stop in Turkey for our layover. So maybe we can go find a cedar of Lebanon while we're there, right? But we want to be those trees in our business, in our lives, such that it's not, wow, look at her, right? Yes, Job 29 talks about it too. Oh, I love that, right? I love when he keeps saying the same thing over and over, right? Because it's like, oh yeah, oh look, there it is again, there it is again, there it is again. And that tree only gets like that. Why? When they put their roots in the right place. That's why in Job, right? He could still be flourishing. Even look at all the things that happened to him. Wow, how is it even possible that he could still like not curse God? Because he was abiding, because he was rooted, right? And that's what we get to do as CEOs as we build our businesses and as we live our lives as rooted in him, right? And that is done for him, through him, to him, right? But in the context of our life and business with how we invest our fill in the blank. I want to see it in the chat. How we invest our what? What have you been talking about all week? How we invest our time. There it is, right? Not running around from one shiny object to the next, or from one tree expert to the next, or one pile of dirt to the next, right? Because then when the storm comes, or it's time, I want to see the fruit, there's not going to be any, right? And we can't just like, I'm going to manifest this fruit. I'm going to like, like we're always looking for the secret sauce to help us grow overnight. Who's ever seen a tree grow up overnight? It was probably like a fake Christmas tree, right? Or somebody went and got it. My husband is a huge tree guy. We live on a wooded property and he's still buying more trees. His philosophy is you can't have enough trees. And I told you the other day, his also philosophy was the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. The second best time is today. So yes, we do have trees that, show up and they've already got a huge ball of roots underneath them because they've been growing in a nursery somewhere or something like that. But they still then have to get rooted in this right place, right? And I was going to tell you, like it matters what we are putting our roots down into. What kind of soil are we in? And I'm just going to tell you, I wasted a lot of time, a lot of money. I would hate to actually add up all the programs and the coaching things that I did that really were just a waste because I was running from one shiny object to the next, trying to grow my business, right? But the person who was leading me didn't share my faith or didn't share my sense of mission or didn't share my struggles or my season of life or any of those things, right? And so even though I tried really hard to put down roots and like stand up taller and like make the fruit come out, it didn't work because I wasn't in the right soil and I wasn't doing it with God, right? I mean, I was saying that in words, right? I wasn't like, totally disregarding him, but I wasn't truly doing that. Has anyone else been there? Say done that in the chat to let me know I'm not alone, right? Like, have you tried to grow in the wrong place? If you were to like, if I were to go get a palm tree when I go to Florida in a couple of weeks and come plant it here, it may look okay for a little bit, but is it going to be still thriving, a couple months, years from now? Good. I'm glad I'm not alone. Look at all the done that's. Yay. Thank you. Right. And so often we plant ourselves in the wrong places, or we're out here running around by ourselves thinking that this is going to help us to produce the fruit that we're looking for. Right. And you might be like I used to be, right? Or like Danielle, I shared her story. I told you guys my story the other day. I didn't have time. I didn't have money. I didn't have patience, and I didn't have a supportive spouse. And so I was just DIYing it all. I was duct taping it together. And like I said, I do the things that I commit to doing, but I didn't have my roots solid down. And I was in that just enough place. Right. But what do we do in that? What do we do in this danger zone in here? When we're in the just enough, what are we doing? We're treading water, right? It's really hard to produce fruit if you're treading water. So right now you might be like, okay, Lissa, I bought courses before. I've got a planner. Maybe you're going to get the Redeemer Time Planner when it comes out in a couple of weeks. Woo, right? And okay, now I know I need to have 5 blocks in my day. Okay, my to-do list is pretty organized. I'm good, right? Got my time blocks. I've invested just enough. And yet, if we want to really be this towering oak, right? Or that flourishing palm tree, or that cedar of Lebanon that like goes, taller than you could ever imagine, it's going to be because we can't just be like, I'm in the just enough zone, right? Because then our roots are going to be really shallow. Are any of these trees going to be able to grow if their roots are really shallow? No. What is it about the weeds? Do you guys ever notice this? Who has pulled a weed and you're like, holy cow, the root on that thing is like going to the center of the earth. No wonder that thing wasn't coming out, right? Like, why is it that sometimes the stuff we don't want to grow has the deepest roots? Because it knows that's what it has to have in order to hang on, right? And we could be kind of like shallow roots, right? And we could go to Hobby Lobby and buy some apples and like hang them on our tree, right? But does that make it an apple tree? Is that going to keep that tree producing apples? It's not, right? And that's what so often happens when we're chasing all this time management advice and, just get more organized and get more categorized and then we'll produce fruit. And, but we've been saying it's really down in here. It's not out here rightly ordering all this stuff, our calendars, our checklists, even our projects and stuff like that. It's down in here. And that's where all that happens. And did you know, I find so interesting and I don't really understand it, but there's a book. If you are like a tree nerd, you could look up this book. It's called The Hidden Life of Trees. The Hidden Life of Trees. And he talks in there about how trees are like human communities. Like they're like supposedly, again, I don't know, but supposedly like these tree parents live with their children and they communicate with them and support them as they grow and they share nutrients with the ones that are sick and struggling and even warn each other of impending dangers. Reminds me of Ecclesiastes, right? Where it talks about two are better than one, right? Because trees, whether they're palm trees or cedars of Lebanon or oaks or us, we need one another to grow, right? What do we call that when we are together with others who are like us? It starts with the C. Community, right? We need that community, right? So, okay, Lisa, how does all this tree stuff, great, right? Like, how does all this relate, right? Because if we want to see the growth, I hope you've already experienced this week, coming in, right? Focusing on what's true, getting rid of what's not true, there's your belief map, starting to look at things differently, starting to believe who we are and whose we are and what we're called to. It's changing things. And you're hearing other people share what's happening, right? And that this like exponentially makes things grow, right? Because CEOs know they can't do this alone, right? We get rooted with God, our creator, and we get rooted with other like-minded women who are also doing similar things. And we have to focus on the putting the roots down before we can focus on all the shiny fruit and the leaves and the branches and all this stuff up here, right? And then when that storm comes, we're not that tree out in the middle of the field, right? That's all by itself. That's hanging on for dear life, right? Because we've got these others around us. So I want to ask you right now, where are you rooted? Where are you rooted? And yes, I know we would love to have overnight success in everything we do, especially our business. But sometimes the best things grow slow. I actually have a podcast guest coming on in a couple of weeks. She wrote a book called Growing Slow that I read this summer. And she and I had almost an hour conversation. So I can't wait for you to hear it, right? But if you are a farmer and you're watching those crops, it is like painfully slow sometimes to watch that, right? But it does come, right? We said this the other day. In due time, you will reap a harvest, right? Because it does come. So let me ask you, what if there was a way to not keep swimming around, never enough island, or treading water in just barely enough, and get to hang out with other like-minded CEOs and a coach who's putting down roots on more than enough island? Like, what if there's a way to know that the way you spend your time in both your life and your business matters in the end? Instead of just trying to get through the day and being like, okay, well, I guess that was good, right? Hope for the best. What if there's a way to be fully present instead of feeling like you're constantly pulled in a million different directions, right? And to give your best, yes. We were talking about that earlier this week, right? To what has called us to, instead of feeling like things in life or in business keep getting put on the back burner. And you're like, but what if there was a way that you could protect your time so that what matters gets the time, attention, and space it needs instead of everything, right, coming crashing through? Like we talked about the garden the other day. Or to ditch the world's way of trying to manage time, playing whack-a-mole all day long and trying to just be productive, right? Just keeping up. And instead trade that for stewarding time and focusing on our purposivity, right? What if there's a way to be rooted where faith really, right? We're putting our roots down in Him, and that's at the center of everything we do. And we're planted in the right environment where growth is happening all around us. And you can't help but grow too. Is that the island you want to live on? Drop me if that's the island that you're like, yeah, of course. And here's the cool thing, there is, right? And I'm about to give you an invitation. And we started this whole week with invitation. Do you remember this? In the very beginning of this whole thing, right? We talked about the invitation that Christ gives us to those of us who are running around never enough island. Because guess what? We can't be good enough. We can't do enough. We can't, have enough. We can't all this stuff, right? To be in a relationship with Him. And He says, what did He say? Come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy burdened. All of you who are swimming around here trying to make up for your not enoughness, or all of you who are, trying to make it look like you've got it all together, like, come with me, right? Here's our bridge. Come with me and take my way of doing life here. And yeah, it doesn't always look like it makes sense on paper. Just going to say that, right? But it changes everything, right? And when we do this, right, it's going to change everything about the ROI in our time, because our time is not just this limited resource or this thing that we're not even paying attention to. So is it okay if I share with you the details about the CEO program and the CEO impact that I shared yesterday with those who came over inside of there? Somebody say, okay, I'm gonna grab a drink. I know some of you weren't in there yesterday, and that's okay, because I said those people get first dibs, and we do have a couple of spots left, but not for long, because I know these are going to fill up, because the more and the more and the more that I talk to women, they're like, this is what I need. This is what I want, right? This is where, like, I feel like there's this disconnect between, I work really hard for a while, or I feel really good about my time for a while, and then things happen. Or I'm getting to this place, and then I'm just kind of feel like I'm stuck there, right? I'm ready to let go of control, right? Somebody say, let go, right? Instead of trying to keep everything under control. But before I share with you about the impact that this can make in you and your business, I want to share with you the impact it's making on women on the other side of the world. So you couldn't see it before because it was behind the whiteboard. So I moved it out. Did you notice today there's this plate over here that has these two ladies? Okay. I picked this up when I went to Central Asia the last time. Okay. Because part of my With God vision for Redeem Her Time is, and a part of what I teach all of my CEOs that come in the program, is to have a bigger vision beyond just bringing in income and paying your bills. How can we be generous? How can this be kingdom work? How can what's coming in from the work we do be flowing out, overflowing, like we talked about from that 2 Corinthians section, right? How can we be doing that? And so, because of the partnership that I've had over in Central Asia and the opportunities to go over there, I was literally sitting in the Walmart grocery pickup, and all of a sudden, and I had been Googling different organizations that support women in business. And I wasn't finding anything that was really aligning with faith. A lot of it was women empowerment, which I'm all for, right? Like making sure that women are empowered all over the world. But I was like, I want something to also be pointing people to Jesus. And all of a sudden it just hit me. I'm like, there's this group that works with these ladies in Central Asia. They are building a business making handmade bags. What would it look like if I were to be able to help support them through what's coming in through Redeem Her Time? And so I reached out to my friends, we had conversations, we talked on Zoom, we, kind of like, they're like, what, you want to just give us money? I'm like, yeah. And so I want you guys to know that anything that you invest through in Redeem Her Time, that there's a percentage of that that goes directly to these ladies. It helps provide their salaries, because they make money from selling the bags, but not enough to live on. It helps provide supplies for them, but you know what else it does? It opens a door, because these women are living in a Muslim country. They just think Jesus is another great prophet. They don't know him as Savior and Lord. And so these workers, missionaries that I know, who know the language, who have built a relationship with these women, they get this open door invitation to go and sit in their houses. They don't have much furniture there. Everything is on the floor, including your table. And they get to sit around and have conversations about life and about faith and about who Jesus is, and all of that, right? Simply because they're there to help these women with their business. And so I, Lord willing, will be going back over and over and over again, right? And I told you guys, I told the CEOs yesterday, I can't remember if I told it in the general session or just in the impact session, my vision, this is like a huge, big, this is how you know it's a God thing, because I have no idea how this would happen. My vision is that there would be CEOs who come with me, who get to go and see another part of the world, who get to go and meet these women, who get to see what this investment is, and have a heart for these women. In fact, one of my CEOs owns a boutique in the small town that I live in. And so right now she's featuring the bags there. And so if you are actually in the community, you may have noticed over in the menu bar, it says compassionate handbags. You can purchase, it's 100% of what you donate goes directly to them. So I give suggestions for donations, but you are welcome to do whatever you feel led to do beyond that. And 100% of it goes over there, as well as a percentage of everything that comes in through Redeem Her Time, because it's about making a bigger impact, right? And think about this. We are investing in ourselves, right? We're investing in our businesses, investing in our faith, investing in those other areas of our life, and that is having a ripple effect to women you may not even ever know, right? What a beautiful thing that is. So, okay, so what is the Redeem Midlife CEO? That's the official name of it right now. One day it may change, I don't know. What is that? And then I'll talk about the impact bonus that I was sharing about yesterday. Well, there are 3 things that are part of this. And like I said from day one, this is for A, you're a woman. Sorry, guys, not sorry. B, you're called to some kind of work, probably a business, but I do have people that like ministry, or just, I just want to be faithful with my time in wherever God is calling me. And you only have 24 hours to do it, right? But you want to grow, right? We're not just here to check boxes and waste time and things like that, right? So, and This is also for the woman who either A, feels like time is out of control and you're like on that hamster wheel trying to catch up. Or like that middle woman who's like, okay, I've been doing time management the world's way and I've got my ducks in a row for the most part, right? Most days. Here, you hear my dog's going crazy in the background. My husband's out mowing, so I'm sure they're barking at him, but but it gets exhausting to do that. And like I said the other day, I want you to write this down because I really want you to think about this. If you would say, I am good at time management, I'm going to ask you this question. What are you settling for when you just manage your time? What are you settling for when we just settle for managing? Right? Because we talked about when our hands are like this, right? It's all like this, right? But when our hands are like this, when we're stewarding, when we're letting go of control, wow, right? So you may find yourself in any of those places. Girl, I'm doing this work until the day I die, right? So I have, sorry, the dogs are getting closer to me now. I'll try and talk louder than them until whatever they're barking at leaves. I have these jars over on my desk as well. Oh, UPS, of course. And there are 100 marbles between those two jars. And I had one grandma that lived to 102 and the other grandma lived to 98. So I'm going for 100, right? I'm going right down the middle. And so that is that reminder every single birthday. I call it my marble moving day, right? That time is limited and I'm being intentional. And I actually have, this is a teacup from Central Asia. What do you notice it's missing? There's no handle, right? There's no handle. Okay. But inside of here, I have the marble for the year that I am in. And this is the only time that I can do something about, right? I can't do anything about the years that already passed. And I'm at 51 now. So I've got more in the past than I do in the coming. I'm officially losing my marbles, right? So I'm just grateful for all that God did in his faithfulness in that time, right? And I could spend a lot of time worrying about the future ones, right? The other 49 that are in that other jar. I don't know what they're going to hold. There are going to be a lot of great things in there, guaranteed it. But I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of hard things in there too, right? And who knows? I might not even get to 100. I don't know, right? The only one that I can do something about is this one. So that's why this one sits on my desk. So every day it is that reminder of what am I doing with the time that I have? How am I investing this instead of just letting me pass you by, right? So, okay. So this Redeem Midlife CEO is a 12-month program, right? What if there was a way, and here's what this is about, right? This is really us looking at our time differently. This is us building our faith and our CEO belief as we build life and business with God, right? And when we do that, then we can have these rightly ordered calendars and business plans and ditch the to-do list. We talked about this yesterday, right? Who would love to ditch a to-do list, right? And no longer be forgetting things or dropping balls, right? And showing up consistently for the things that matter instead of always feeling like, oh, there I go again. Oh, I said I was going to, oh, I made it so far, right? And then completing those big projects, right? That are going to bring the growth. This is like what's going to shape us in that direction so that we're not feeling overwhelmed or held back by fear because it's all on us, right? We don't have to feel like we have to quit our business every time life gets hard or busy, or we're always working from our phone or our laptop, or we're just checking boxes, checking boxes, checking boxes, right? So there are 3 things that you're going to find inside here if you decide to join us, okay? You're going to find courses. You're going to find coaching. And you're going to find community. And for sake of time, and also because it doesn't necessarily matter, well, how many courses and modules are there? How many workbooks and how many, and how, right? Like that stuff doesn't matter, right? I'm just going to tell you that this is all self-paced stuff. And you get access to this for an entire year, right? And I take you through the With God Life framework. Remember that wheel I showed you yesterday? Faith at the middle, and then it had the other 7 areas. So we go through those 8 areas, not only assessing where we are, but also prayerfully looking at where we're needing to put some time and attention and how God's calling us to grow. Because again, we're never arrived, right? So no more getting out of balance because things get neglected and don't get your time and attention, or one area gets too much of something else, right? Like I put together a really simple process to have this bigger with God picture of these different areas of our life. And then inside the courses, you also get the CEO business framework, right? So that way we're getting really intentional about our time inside our business. And we're not being random about doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that, or putting it in the back burner, or even putting our business on a pedestal. Like we are being faithful with our time in such a way that it is fruitful, right? And one of the things, like I told you with Danielle, we're taking this big goal she has. She wants to walk away from that job. So she has the freedom to go. She's volunteering with some organizations. She's serving in her church. She's about to have her first grandbaby come into the world. And so, yeah, there are a lot of other things she'd rather do than just be sitting in front of a computer, right? And so we are taking that bigger vision she has and breaking it down into these steps so that way she is able to move towards that, right? Also inside the courses, you get the Redeem Her Time stewardship system, right? How do we lay out our day, our week, our month, our year? What does it look like? So we're not just leaving things up to chance, or like hoping that we're gonna, remember everything because it's all in our head or it's all on Post-it notes or it's all over the floor, whatever. Like we go way beyond conventional time management. Yes, some of the tools may look similar, but we're doing it from a heart of stewardship, right? And it's all coming back to this bigger with God vision and this bigger with God mission that he's given us, right? And we put together, I love this, we put together a distraction proof plan. Somebody on their homework today was talking about being distracted in that evening time, that PM pour out. And so I said, okay, let's go into the distraction proof plan section module and let's put together a plan for you and let's figure this out, right? And a growth plan in there as well. Now, when I first did this, and some of you were in here, kind of, you were in here like back in the day, right? Like when I first did this, it was 12 weeks and it was like fire hose, boom, 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 every week, right? And it was like, amazing, amazing. And here's what I found. When I got to the end of the 12 weeks, I had several women come to me, Lissa, this is amazing, but we're not done. We still need you. Like, we got to figure out how to keep doing this consistently. And so that's when I just really sat down with the Lord and said, okay, God, like what kind of time do we need? I mean, this is going to be a lifetime of work, let's be honest, right? But I enlarged it to 12 months. Why? Because we don't just need information. And yes, there's a lot of great information and biblical truth and stuff like that, and tips and strategies and principles in all of that. It's the implementation piece, right? It's the implementation with faith at the center, right? It's the implementation, that says, okay, and how am I sticking with this long term in different seasons, right? When life is busy and when it's not, and when the kids are home from school and when it's the holidays and because we don't want to slip back into those old habits, which is where the coaching and the community comes in. Right. And like you heard from Danielle earlier, who didn't think she had the money, this has been worth every penny. And she's a finance girl. So she watches money really, really tightly. Like that's what she does. Right. So yeah, you get me as a coach for an entire year. Right. So whether that's in a group setting, whether you and I are connecting one-on-one because of what you're working on, we do things where we set goals for the year. We set goals for the quarter. We look at our month together. We do weekly co-working. We do weekly spotlight coaching calls and book club discussions. Those steer belief maps, remember I shared with you earlier, like you can submit those to me on the daily if you want. Somebody sent me one this morning, right? Like, okay, Alyssa, here's what I'm believing. Here's what I'm struggling. Here's what I'm working through. Help me keep working towards this, right? Like how amazing would it be to have that, right? And to have ongoing support, right? That girl who said, hey, I'm struggling in this time of my day. And I was like, okay, let's look at why. And I gave her a couple of things to put together just she can submit that, right? And then that last part is the community, right? This is like the family of trees, right? How many of us are solopreneurs, right? A lot of us are solopreneurs, and even some of my CEOs are entrepreneurs. They have like employees that work for them. But guess what? When you're the CEO, it's kind of like you're kind of by yourself, right? There's no other peers next to you in your business if you are an entrepreneur with employees, right? And a lot of us are solopreneurs. And so having other people, right, is amazing. And that's where you may have seen in the menu, there's an inner circle. That's for my CEOs. That's where we get to connect 24/7 if you want to. I mean, I'm not going to show up 24/7, but right. But that's where we're connecting there. We're connecting on those weekly coaching calls. We're praying over our week. We're sharing what's going on. We're celebrating wins. We're helping think through, the struggles that we're having and stuff like that. And it's, again, I shared with you guys earlier, Danielle is meeting with another person. I didn't know this, right? They've been meeting outside of group on their own for a while. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's amazing, right? So that's really cool. So that's what you get access to over 12 months, right? Now, right now, because I sat down with the Lord, it was like, what does a woman who's building the business right now, like right now, August 30th, 2024, what does she need? And that's where the CEO impact bonus came from, because I know you are not in business to just check boxes. Is anyone in business check boxes? If so, you can drop a check mark in the chat, Pretty sure I'm not going to see any, right? Because then you'd be wasting your time, wasting your energy, wasting your money. You could be going and doing something else, right? You are here because you truly know that you've been called to this and you want to see it grow. You want to make an impact, right? You want to be the oak tree, right? Or the palm tree or the cedar of Lebanon, not just so people can look at you, right? But like, wow, look at what God's doing through her and in her, and look at the difference that is being made, right? And sometimes it's never going to be seen or acknowledged, and that's great. That's just as much a part of it. So as I sat down to look at this, I thought, okay, what are the things that she needs to have in place? Like if she really wanted to increase her impacted income before the end of the year, right? So we've got 4 months left in this year. Is it possible? Number one, yes, it is. And number two, what would she need in order to be able to do it? Okay, so there are two parts to this. One are the 4 essentials. And then the second thing is the support that comes along with it. Okay, so essentially what I've done is I've pulled out of all of this stuff what I think are like the things that you have to start with. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go run through these, and then I'll open this up for questions and things like that. Okay, so draw a line here. Number one, our CEO work blocks. Make sure you're writing these down. We talked about this on day 2, right? If we're in business, we have to have work time. We have to have business hours. And we can't just have them posted on the door, right? We actually have to stick to them. I did have somebody tell me that they're super distracted during their work time, which means their work is taking more time than it should, right? So it's not just having it. Yep, I've got it on my calendar. Yep, I'm in my office from 8 to 4, like somebody shared yesterday. But like, I am committed to that time. And here's the thing. I'm committed to when I'm not doing that, to when I am closing that up, and then what I'm giving my time to outside of that. So inside the CEO impact, we are going to build out not just your work blocks, but we're also going to build out what your time looks like outside of that. Because I bet a lot of you have work blocks already, right? You have times, yep, this is when I sit down. But do you feel like all the other stuff is getting done, or is this all out here? Like, woo, right? When am I cleaning? When am I running the store? When am I doing groceries? When am I never have time with my family, right? Like, because that part may be all over the place. Okay. So we're going to get both areas in order, because if life is out of control, then business isn't going to be as effective. And if business is out of control, then life isn't going to be as effective. Right. Okay. So that's the first one. The second one is CEO work flows. Do you know what a workflow is? I'm talking to a bunch of women in business. I'm pretty sure you know what a workflow is, right? Okay, a workflow is the flow of tasks from the initiation of a task to the completion of a task. Again, how many of us have multiple tabs open because we're in the middle of things? How many of us reinvent the wheel every time we sit down? How many of us waste a whole bunch of time trying to figure out where we last were? Because, okay, where did I leave off last? And what did I do? And, and then half of our work time gets spent just trying to figure out where we should be versus like, okay, I'm sitting down. So in the CEO impact bonus, I love this. Not only are you going to know when you're sitting down to work and when you're not, we are going to actually build out some workflows. And I teach some very specific types of workflows that are really going to systemize things for you and reduce 90% of your to-do list. Who would love to get rid of 90% of their to-do list? I believe most things on the to-do list that we carry around all day long are things that we do on repeat, right? They are things that are recurring. And so if we can create a workflow around it or make it part of one, then I don't have to keep remembering it, right? I don't have to keep like, oh, okay. Oh yeah. And that's for things that happen daily, things that happen weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually. I'm going to show you how to build that out, and then how to build out ones that are going to be specific to your business, because these are the types of things you need to be doing all the time, whether that's following up with clients, whether that's content creation, whether that's working, planning out a project or planning out an event. Okay, so I'm going to give you the templates. We're going to get those built. So that way your time, when you sit down, you're going to know immediately, no wasting time going from this thing to that thing, like boom, it's already right here in front of me and all in one place. Okay, not everywhere, all in one place. Okay, number 3, our CEO growth plans. Now here's what I love. We can spend a lot of time doing all the recurring stuff, right? There's a lot of stuff that needs to happen on a regular basis. But what about those projects? What about those bigger things that you keep saying, I want to find time for? Those are usually often the middle circle ones we talked about the other day. They're not the inner circle, like they have to be done today. but they're like okay, I need to make time for this. Like, for example, one of my CEOs is writing a book, right? So is her business going to fall apart if she doesn't write today? No. But what happens if she doesn't write today and then the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day, right? And then there are a whole lot of other steps because right now she's working with an editor and then she's going to have to work on a publisher and then she's going to have to work on, how to promote it and launch it. And, like there's all these steps and it can get really overwhelming. And what happens? We go, so much for that, right? Or we set this goal at the beginning of the year. I'm going to do this year. How many of you have set a goal at the beginning of the year? You were good maybe January, maybe into February if you were really good, because most people don't make those goals stick beyond the first year of the year, first month of the year, right? And then somewhere around this time of the year, you're like, oh, wow, it's almost the end of the year. I gotta pick things up. It's like the tortoise and the hare story, right? Like there is no way that this thing would be sitting here almost ready to go into people's hands if I didn't have a process for doing these growth plans. Okay. And what I do is I make this so easy that you can't not do it. Right. And you've got it so well mapped out. And yes, I've had to go back and erase and move things and stuff like that in my plans because, I did the best I could when I went out and did it. But it's amazing how much more you can do those things that are really going to move you forward instead of always put them on the back burner or someday I'm going to launch that podcast or someday I'm going to, right, fill in the blank, whatever that is. Okay. Number 4. Hope you can see this. Okay, it's still down there. Okay. CEO daily meeting. Now, this is last, not because it's least, but because, sorry, I couldn't really make that a G. Okay, there we go. But because it actually is what ties the other 3 together, right? We could jump into our work blocks, our workflows, and our growth plans like as soon as the alarm goes off. Boom, right? Okay, I'm in. Let's go. Woo, got so much stuff to do. Right. And then I got to do this around the house. I got to do this for my kids. And I got to do this for my husband. I got to do this for church. I got to do that. Right. Like we could do all that. But what is the result going to be? We're going to be a puddle on the ground before very long. Right. We talked yesterday. That's the value of the refill block at the beginning of your day. You have to fill up before you pour out. And it's not just like, I want to fill up to like this certain level and now I'm good. Like, I don't know about you, but like, I want to be the overflowing vessel, right? Who's always being filled up and pouring out and things like that. And so what we do that I think is different from any other time management person that you're probably finding out there is we actually get what the world would consider wasteful with our time. Can I just say that? By spending time with our chairman of the board. Who's our chairman of the board? God, right? I love the story of Mary and Martha. Who here is a Martha, right? I have a book on my shelf called Having a Mary Heart in a Martha World, right? I think so many of us, especially those of us in business, we are Marthas, we are doers, right? And again, when we were watching The Chosen and we came across that scene recently, it wasn't like she was, trying to do anything bad or wrong or whatever. She was trying to serve Jesus and his disciples. I mean, like, that's a very noble thing to do. And it wasn't like she had Instapot to go all of a sudden create this food for them or, Instacart to go pick it up or anything like that. Like, it was going to take a little bit of work. And what did he say? He's like, he didn't yell at her, Martha, Martha. What did he do? Martha, Martha, Mary has chosen what is better. Right? And then you see, as you watch this scene, like Martha go and sit down, even though half of them are still not fed, right? And so you can see at first this tension that's going on. She's like, I got stuff to do. And you want me just to come sit. And he goes, you feeding on my words is the most important food. Right. And she you see her just kind of like, let go. Right. And then it was really fun because then, not that it was fun that Lazarus died, but in the scene they show like after Lazarus was raised back to life, Mary and Martha go back out to the living room. Jesus is still talking with Lazarus. And Mary's like, wow, Martha, you're just sitting here and look at the mess all around us. And you're just sitting here like you have this peace in you, right? Like, so this daily meeting is so important. And here's what really hit me this morning. I was actually working on putting some final touches on this template that's going to help you with this and thinking through what are the things that a CEO needs to focus on before she goes into her day. And I decided to include the Lord's Prayer in there. And I actually have a kind of a different not that I've taken scripture and changed it, but like kind of updated version of it. And what really hit me is so often we pray, God, your will be done, right? Like I'm going to stand here and wait and watch it. God, your will be done. Guess what? That is why he gave you your time, because he is inviting you to be part of that process. That is why he gave you the money that you have. That's why he gave you the influence that you have, the impact that you're making. That's why he gave you the business you have, or the ministry, or the relationships, or whatever, is because he's inviting us into this with God life to be not only walking with him, but part of bringing his kingdom to earth, right? And one day we're going to be with him forever, right? Which is why we are stewards, not managers and owners of it all, right? And so I'm really excited about how getting really consistent with this is going to exponentially increase all this. Okay. And I don't have time to go into this today, but yesterday I went into a little section about the Proverbs 31 woman, because if you look at that description of her, you will find all four of those. I actually went and put the replay at the top of the dashboard because I was like, I wanted you to hear it. Even if you were like, I didn't know what it was. I didn't apply to be in that impact bonus yesterday. We talked about a few other things that I didn't have time to get to today. In Proverbs 31:18, it says her business was profitable. And go and read that and look at the impact that she has. So not only is she making a profit, she's increasing income enough so that she can keep investing in things, right? And people keep coming back and buying from her, but she's also increasing her impact. Her husband speaks of her well, her children, her maidservants, the poor, and the people at the gate who don't even know her, right? And all the glory is going to God when you get to the very end. So I encourage and challenge you to go back and check that out. Okay, so if you would like to join us, this is my invitation to you, right? If you would like to join us, what we are going to do, those of you who come in, I'm going to give you the weekend off, although I will get you connected to all the resources ASAP. So if you want to jump in literally in an hour, you can, okay? But starting next week, we are going to get these 4 things in place. Okay, because what I did, like I said, is I went in here and went, what does she need right now if she's going to make this happen before the end of the year? Okay, and so we're going to get these things in place over the 4 weeks of September and start doing them. And then once October hits, which according to the calendar is 4th quarter, but we don't always do things by the quarter, it just kind of happened to line up that way this time. You are going to have a high level of accountability in making these happen on a very regular basis. Do you think that if you had these things in place and you were consistently doing them with the right support, that you would increase your impact in your business? Do you think that you would increase your income in your business because of that impact being increased, and not just checking boxes and not doing random things and not stopping and starting and not, doing all the things that here's part of it. We're going to simplify, right? So I don't want you doing a bazillion different things, right? We're going to go, what is it that matters most? And we're going to focus in on that. How can I be a better steward of my time by not spreading it so thin over all these other things, even if they're all good, even if they're all business related things? And so we're going to really get this stuff solid so that we can maximize the last 4 months of the year. And guess what? You get this for a whole year. So we're not stopping when the calendar turns 2025. Who can believe it's gonna be 2025, right? Like it always takes me like half the year to think about this. Thanks, Nadine, right? So, okay. The other thing that I just want to tell you is that I actually am offering a special challenge price. For those of you who are here as part of the challenge, you're going to get a special challenge price that is not going to be available to everyone else and is going to be going away on Tuesday at midnight. So I'm going to give you the weekend. It's a long weekend. Some of you may have plans and things like that you're doing. That's amazing. And they'll give you that extra day, right? And not only do you get the bonus, but then you also get the whole program, and then you get all the support and community that comes along with it. But before I tell you that, I want you to tell me what the value is. So I'm giving you a math assignment. Some of you may know I was an English teacher and a math teacher. Yes, I work with both sides of my brain. Not many people do both. Okay, so grab a piece of paper. Maybe it's right under your tree, okay? I want you to write down the number of clients or customers, if you have a business, that you would like to impact between now and the end of the year. How many clients or customers would you like to impact? Now, one of my clients owns a coffee shop, so she's probably going to have thousands, okay? You may have a VA business. You may be a health coach. You may be somebody who does personal styling, or I'm trying to think of what are some other ones. I have a CRM specialist, right? Like, so, maybe you have less people you're serving, but they're going to, we'll talk about this in just a minute, but okay, I want you to write down that number. Does everyone have that number written down? I'm not going to ask you to share this publicly unless you want to, okay? All right, now, first thing I want to ask you is that a with God number? Or is that this feels like it's safe? This feels like I can control it. This feels like How many of us, right, stay in the safe place or stay in the, well, this is as much as I've done before, right? Just was reading again. I was like, God, you were so faithful to keep bringing these scriptures back to my mind this week. Ephesians 3:20 was what popped up in my prayer app this morning. Now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all we ask or imagine, right? So maybe you want to bump that number up a little bit. Okay, it's up to you. All right, second number you need is the amount that each of those people will invest with you. Now, for my coffee shop friend, she lives in California. I'm guessing a cup of coffee is what, $5 maybe? I don't know. I make my own coffee at home, so I don't even know what it is here in the Midwest, but right? Maybe, but again, maybe you've got a higher thing. Maybe it's $500. Maybe it's $1,000. Maybe it's $3,000. Doesn't matter. Okay, what's the value of what you are offering right now? And then what I want you to do is I want you to do the math, multiply those two numbers together. So for example, if you had 10 people who were paying you $1,000 for your coaching, that's $10,000. Or maybe you had 20 people who were paying you $500, that's $10,000. Or maybe you had 50 people who were paying $200, that's $10,000, right? Essentially, right? Can't guarantee that that's for sure going to happen, right? But that is the value of what this could do for you between now and the end of the year, right? And the cool thing is you're not doing it on your own. Number one, you have the Lord, right? He is always the one who's the multiplier. He's the supplier and the multiplier, right? And then you get the coaching in the community and all of the resources to help you put all this together. Okay, so let's get to the bottom line because I know that's what we're all here. We're like, okay, great, value. Yes, but that value is important. And that's why I tell you that because like, we can spend money and we can invest money, right? I can go spend money on a great beverage, but guess what? Unless I met a friend and had a great conversation over it, it's going to go in and out, right? That was money spent. I can invest money in something that's going to produce a return. That's what we're talking about. Okay, so through September 3rd, you can be part of this 12-month group coaching program with that really high level one-on-one support and the CEO impact that we talked about to really help get things rolling for the rest of the year. For $49.97. Okay, $49.97 is 12 months. And people tell me all the time, Lisa, are you crazy? I'm like, yeah, I know. It's not going to stay there, right? I just told you this is not going to happen after the 3rd. Okay, that $49.97 has a built-in discount of 20%. So like when I invested with my coach, I was like, yep, I will do pay in full because I would rather have the extra discount. Or if it would make it easier, you can spread it out over 12 months and make them $497. Okay, because I get it. Sometimes it's like, ooh, don't know how I could do that, but I could do $497. I could make that work, right? And I know some of you are sitting right here right now and you're like, Lisa, I'm at zero. Like I'm looking at this number and I'm like, that would be great, but right now I got nothing coming in. But here's what I'm gonna say. Just like I said to Danielle. Okay, so when we plant those seeds of faith, right? When we are willing to invest, if I keep staying here going, I can't, right? Okay, well, you can be like I was for a really long time and keep duct taping things together, right? Hoping that maybe one day it's going to happen. But I know when I finally decided like, okay, I have to invest because I am not going to grow and I'm not going to continue growing if I don't do that. So I'm just going to encourage and challenge you to really think about that value, right? Look at that number. And it's not just about that number, right? Well, coming into your bank account, how amazing would that feel, right? Maybe that number was 4,000. Maybe that number was 400. Hopefully it's more than 400, right? Maybe that number was 10,000 or 20,000. I mean, like, wow, that would be a great investment, right? Like, so, and the whole point of it is that it's allowing us to overflow in generosity, right? So not only are we making an impact through our business and the way we're helping people get from whatever that never enough island is to more than enough, but we are also now able to, overflow in kingdom ways too, right? With money, with time, with resources, with sharing truth, with building relationships and all of that. So yeah, so I just want to encourage you on that, right? Because if you're like, I don't have that in the bank right now, right? Or I don't know for sure that I'm going to be bringing that much in each month. Like, I don't know if I can invest. Like that is exactly the reason to invest, right? Getting a good ROI on your time is the exact reason to do something like this. Because when we do that, that's exactly what we're working on, right? And this is going to put everything together, that system and support that you need to not make that an issue. What if you didn't have to bat an eye the next time that you had an opportunity to come across your path? What if you didn't even have to go, oh, I don't know if I can do that? Like, what if it was like, you knew the value and you were like, yes. And I know that God has stirred something in my heart. And yes, this is exactly what I need to do. Like, what if there was a way to not just cover your costs or keep moving money around from different accounts and things like that to pay for the things that you're paying for in your business? to have that all in there. Like I was where you are on the other side of investing. I even have a picture when I was telling my husband about how I wanted to invest with the coach that I'm currently working with and what that value was and what that was going to do for me. And our trail cam took a picture of us and you can see our heads are down, right? And I'm telling him or whatever. And he just sent me a screenshot and he goes, "This is me supporting you." And remember, he was not supportive up until this point. So that was huge, right? Can I guarantee that that number you have in front of you, you're going to make between now and the end of the year? No one can. But what if it's double that? Right? Like, and here's what I can guarantee. You will become the kind of CEO who shows up and who is faithful with what she's been given, her time, her mission, her message, right? Her business. And that girl could turn into 3-figure months, months with commas in them, months with 2 commas in them or more, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know where God's going to grow what I'm doing, but I just keep being faithful and planting myself in the right place and all of that, right? So that's what happens when we come in there, right? No more fear. I'm afraid there's not going to be enough time. I'm afraid there's not going to be enough money. I'm afraid I'm not going to do enough. How about this one? I started programs before Alyssa and I haven't finished them. Guess what? I don't let you not, right? Like I am here. If you're telling me you're all in, I'm all in for you, right? And I will make sure that you get out of this what you came here for. So this is my invitation to you, okay? And what I did to make it super easy is I put the link to do this on the challenge dashboard so you didn't have to go find something else. Right at the very top, it says, join the CEO program and get the impact bonus, right? So this is my invitation to you to not stay stressed out, worn out, burned out, or just settle for managing time, or just settle for where you are right now, right? But to come in, join the inner circle, come hang out on Never More Than Enough Island, not Never Enough Island, right? We're leaving that, right? And see what happens, right? See what happens. Go listen to Danielle's story. Chesney's story is on there as well. And here's your homework for today. Number 1, I want you to take this decision to the Lord, right? If you felt something stirring you this week, if you know that you were called to this business and you know that he's giving you 24 hours in a day, like what would this look like to put those things together, right? Take that to him, right? And then you can just go literally click on the link and I will get a notification that you're in, and then I will get you connected to all this stuff. Or maybe you have some questions. Maybe you're like, I don't know about this. Would this work for my kind of business? Well, here's the situation I'm in. That was the conversation I had with my coach. I can't because boom, 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 right? But then as I processed and I prayed, I knew that that was exactly what I need to do. And I would love for you to be able to come in before the price goes up on Wednesday. Okay. Because this is like my extra gift for you as being here. And I would love to see what could happen between now and the end of the year. Right. So that's my invitation to you. So you can head to the challenge dashboard, go ahead and do that right away. If you want to talk more, I am so reachable. It's not even funny. On the challenge dashboard, there is a link that says, leave me a message. You can leave me a voice message right there. You can, if you have my phone number, text me, call me. All of you should have my email, lissa@redeemhertime.com. Send me an email, send me a, carrier pigeon, whatever, right? Like, let's talk about where you are, right? Let's talk about where you are and what those things are that you're not sure about. Okay. All right. Now, last thing. Thanks for hanging on and let me share all that stuff with you guys today. Today's homework. Right? If you remember, I told you the homework at the very beginning. That's why I did, because I knew today would be a little bit longer. Today's homework is to go inside the community and share the payoff that this challenge has had for you as a CEO. How has this built your belief? How has this helped you to see your time in a different way? How has this helped you to see your business in a different way? How has this helped you to put those two things together, right? How has this helped you to start eliminating distractions? Or, I mean, the sky's the limit, right? Like, what is it that this couple of days, 4 days together. Imagine if we had 365 more days together, like, oh, that'd be so fun. I would love to hang out with every single one of you for the next 365 days. I'm just going to say that, right? But I have been praying for the women who are going to say yes. I don't know who you are. God does, right? You may not even know that it's you, right? Like I went into the challenge with my coach saying, I'm not doing anything. I can't afford it. I went into a phone call with her saying, I'm not doing it. Just here for the free call. But I knew that God was like, hey, listen, this is exactly what you need. And so I was like, okay, I trust you. And wow, seeing the fruit. And again, not because of a look at me, but look at him. So anyway, so I'm asking you, come inside the community, share the value you've gotten out of this week. That's going to bless my heart. But you know what? It's going to bless the other women who've been part of this challenge and are already part of the community. And it's going to bless people that hear about this down the road and are like, what's the Find the Time challenge? Is it even worth my time? Should I come? So if you can and are willing to do a video, just record it on your phone, less than a minute, put it in the comments. That'd be great. If not, you can type out a few things. That'd be amazing too. I'd be really, really privileged. So, well, thanks you guys for being here today. You are a gift. Our time together has been a gift. And if it's okay with you, I would just love to pray and just ask God, thank him for what he's done and what he's doing and what he's going to continue to do. Would that be okay? All right. Lord, we just thank you for how you have shown up this week. And I thank you for each woman that you have drawn here this week, whether she's been here on a live or multiple lives, whether she's listened to a replay or multiple replays, whether she hasn't even found this yet and will somehow stumble across it, quote unquote, by chance down the road. God, you are the one who started the work in us when you called us to yourself. You are the one who's doing the work in us as you make us more like you. And you are the one who will complete the work one day when we will be with you forever. And we won't have to think about not having enough time or what to do with our time because it's just going to be spent worshiping you. And so, God, I just thank you for giving us the context of life and business, this place in which we can learn to walk with you and to be stewards of what you've entrusted to us. So I pray for every woman who's listening to my voice right now, God, that you would speak loudly and clearly to her heart about what she needs to do next to be rooted in you and to produce the growth that is going to make kingdom impact. And so in Jesus' name, we lift all these things to you. Amen. Amen. All right.